Okay, so now we are going to take our drop waist pattern and we're going to line up our back and our front, make sure that they're laying side by side here, and we're going to do a contoured waistband. So a contoured waistband is going to be fitted. It's going to be the shape of your skirt. So most contoured bands are roughly about 1.25 inches in depth. So I'm going to take my ruler here and I'm going to line up. I've got my 1.25 inch line where I've lined up along the top of my drop waist, and I'm just going to follow it along every inch or so. Draw a line. Remember that we're not using that dart anymore. We've taken it out of the side, as in the pink line on here. So just make sure that you come right up to the side. So there's my front. So I'm now going to do the exact same at the back. And remember as well that from center back and center front, you want to make sure that that line is squared off with your center front and center back. Otherwise, what happens if it's got a bit of a curve, it ends up creating a peak, and you don't want to create a peak in the front or the back of your waistband. So I'm going to go across here 1.25 inches. Okay, so this line now represents my new my waistband line. So I'm just going to take my ruler, make sure that I've kept it squared, and I'm going to look for the curve in it that lines up here. You need to here. You don't want any peaks or valleys in your line. You want to make sure that it's a nice blended curve. Sometimes it's really easy to find, other times it takes a little bit of finessing. So remember, I've got it straight there. So this is my new waistband here that I'm going to cut off. So before I cut it off, I want to make sure I've identified center front, center back. So I'm going to, on the center front, I'm going to actually add a notch here, just so that I know when I cut the two apart, I've got something to line up. Center back, I'm going to do a double notch. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to cut. I'm going to first cut off the top of this here. Cut off the top of this one here. So I've got these. So I've got the top of my band cut off. I'm going to take and I'm going to cut on the line that I've created for my waistband. I'm going to cut my side out. Before I go too far, I am going to write center front down here, just so that if this piece gets misplaced, and I'm going to put center back here, if either any of these pieces get misplaced and you're looking at them, because sometimes when there's no marking on it, the back and the front all look the same. So I've got this piece cut. I'm now going to cut my back. Okay, so I now have my two pieces here for my contoured waistband. Now, depends on the skirt as to how much of a curve or anything that you have. This one definitely has quite a bit of a curve in it. You may find that once you've done your sloper up, it doesn't have anywhere near a curve. It could just even be just as subtle as something as subtle as this. But for this particular skirt, we've got a definite curve here. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to take my pieces together. I'm actually going to turn this where I've got a bit of blank paper up here. So I'm going to tape these two, lining up the top and bottom. So now what I want to do, because I don't want this peak on my pattern when I cut it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about 1/8 of an inch off the bottom and add about 1/8 of an inch in the top. And I'm just going to fill this area in here so that I've got a nice smooth curve at the top. And I'm just going to take it off of the bottom. So I'm not changing the width of my waistband at all on the side seams. All I'm doing is just contouring. You may want to find a nice tight or more rounded curve just to play around with this. But it's not very big, so it's not going to take up too much. So now before I cut, I'm just going to add another little piece of tape up here so I don't lose that. So now I can take, I'm going to cut this here, and cut this here. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to cut this peak off. And I'm going to cut the inside and just add it back on up here. Okay, so now I have my contoured waistband. Now, what you do want to remember, you've got center front here. So this here is going to get cut on a fold. So you want to make sure that you mark your fold line here. You don't want to have a seam down the front of your waistband. So now my piece, I'm going to put seam allowances on this. So I put on whether you want 1/2 inch or 3/8 of an inch. What you need to remember too is because it's a waistband, it's going to have interfacing in it. So you must remember that you're going to interface it. So right on here, interface. You're also going to cut 2 because you have a front and a back. So you want to know that you're cutting cut 2 interface. Okay, and center back is marked. So now I can take this pattern and I know that I have my marks on here. So when I've added my seam allowance onto the rest of my skirt pattern, whether it's the front or the back, these are now going to be notches. So when I sew these two together, I'm going to know that they're going to match up at the center back. And when I sew them together, they're going to match up. There's going to be another notch that's going to match the center front. So that is a contoured waistband on a dropped waist skirt.